got two guys here with something like 70 years of bidding experience in one of the great companies of the world, wanting to tell a whole range of stories by way of anecdote, humour, fact. You know, it's everything that they've learned and they're trying to pass on. Now, this is a special week. I've done a lot of pictures now, three winning Olympic Games, Rugby World Cups and so on. There's not a lesson that's missing inside this book, I promise you. Now, just to let the cat out of the bag, you're going to be given one as you leave. And that's a hell of a gesture on its own. But read it, and I'm sure you'll be telling the world, any marketing, any law firm, any accounting firm, any business that's preparing for bids and pitches, just must read this book. It is 70 years of experience, just in black and white, written beautifully and simply, and with great lessons. You know the title of the book, I guess. Stop Bitching, Start Pitching. That sounds like Elliot. But when you get into the chapters, and indeed on the bottom of the cover, it says the 9 successful steps to winning business. And then there are the most unusual chapter headings. Chapter 1 is the rumble. Chapter 2 is the mumble. Chapter 3 is the bumble. 4 the stumble, 5 the stagger, 6 the walk, 7 the run, 8 the jump, and 9 the fly. 9 chapters. Well, when I sort of read it and thought about it, what were they trying to do? Yes, of course, it's the early preparation in the rumble. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But, you know, if you think of Superman, even when he got into his gear, he had to run a few steps and go up, up and away before he actually flew. And that's what these chapters are. They're the up, up and away, and you fly at the end with this brilliant last presentation, and you win. And that's why the chapters are written as they are. So when you look at the first chapter and you think to yourself, as you would many of you be confronted in this room with, right, we've got a tender, we know who the target is, what are we going to do? And you read that chapter about team leadership. You know, we must have a pitch leader. And we must have a team that's absolutely committed to winning. And who's that going to be? You know, when I advised the UK government on their London bid for 212, I wrote a whole piece on who should be the pitch leader. It started by saying, it's London bidding, it'd be a good idea to have a London bidding. You'd think that it would have been fairly obvious. What did London do? They picked Barbara Cassani from America to run the bid for 2012. Very, very articulate and capable woman, and bright enough to know after 8 months that she was getting nowhere. Everybody said, you're from America, what are you? So she came forward and said, I'm not cutting it. I can make no impression on my target here. I must stand aside. And Sebastian Coe came forward, and we all know from then on the bid got some momentum, along with all the other steps following Ian and Marty's book, and they won it. Well, I want to tell you one more story, because it's about Ian and Marty, and Alex, who's here somewhere. And it's an important story for me because there's a friendship here that's very, very deep. And it's been, for a boring old lawyer like me, one of the most uplifting things that I've had in my working life is to be part of an advertising agency and to watch that creativity and to watch bidding in a spectacular way. A fantastic experience. Well, how did I meet them? You know, when we were bidding for the games, we needed an agency. And 6 agencies were asked to pitch, one after another for an hour, on a day, and there were 6 judges. I was one and there were 5 others. Doesn't matter about the first 4. Good efforts, but not what we were looking for. The 5th was Clemenges. And Clemenges arrived, they'd not read Ian's book or anything that even resembled what Marty might be thinking. So 2 guys arrived. I don't think the main guy had had a shave or a bath in a week. And they had this old briefcase and they opened it and out fell a Pizza Hut submission. And he went, oh, crap, you're not Pizza Hut, are you? No, bash that back in the bag. But in the course of the presentation he said, look, I've got an idea, and if it's the right idea, well then we might be getting somewhere with it. It's not, you might as well throw us out of the room. Different style of approach. And the idea was, share the spirit. A slogan that Qantas seems to have these days. It was first given to the Sydney Olympic bid. I like that theme, but I couldn't work out the people. I had no idea who was going to be working for us because I could see these two couldn't. Well, the numbers, the last lot came in. Ian Elliott led a team into the room for Pats. Well, he'd obviously had architects survey the room beforehand. I mean, they had all the gear, the boards, the lot. They made us all sit on one side of the table. They put our name tags across in front of us. They had their own in front of them. Eyeballed each for body length. Everything that's in this book did he do. And in one of the most unbelievable presentations for an hour, he absolutely knocked the socks off everybody. And they retired. And 5 of my people said, oh, we can decide this right now. It's Ian Elliott and Pats. You know, I mean, life's got to those guys working for us. And I said, well, what about that fee? I just need that fee. And in the end, I wouldn't give in. And out of it, they said, well, you're the bloody chief executive, you take responsibility, you choose. Yeah, good at it. So I rang them and I said, I've got to have the theme. And Ian said, well, if you've got to have the theme, you've better take it. And in a gesture that everybody in this room that knows Marty and Ian and Alex, and after all they represent an agency, it wasn't just them, but they're my idols, knows the generosity of spirit of them, that they would give up that kind of possibility and opportunity for me to get the thing that I was after. And there's a happy ending to this story, you see, because the epilogue of this book has a quote in it from Ian. And it says this: we didn't lose, it just became a longer pitch. And what happened? Of course we won the games. But then the games needed an agency. And who became that agency? Ian and Alex and George Pats. And for 5 and 6 years of preparation, of sending the messages, of succeeding with the ticket program and keeping bloody Michael Knight out of everybody's eyes so we had a successful game. All of those things did Pats do. See, so the epilogue was right, wasn't it? They didn't lose, it was just a longer pitch. And so that's what it's all about, this book. It's inspirational, it's practical, it's humorous, it's just a gem. You know, when I spoke at Harvard a few years ago, not in the Harvard Yard where the real people speak, somebody said to me, the greatest speaker speaks in that chapel. His name's Peter Gomes, he's the liturgical professor from Harvard. And he turns scripture for the minds of, 25-year-old brilliant people from all over the world into wonderfully modern, understandable messages. Well, so does this book. Wonderfully modern, understandable messages. But Gomes said one thing at the sermon I was at, the title of which was Impatience is a Virtue. Unusual, you see. Most people would say philosophy. Gomes is all for, yes it is. And he concluded this sermon by saying this: we are not where we would be, so pray. We are not where we ought to be, this is not our destination, so hope. What we have, no matter how much or how little, is not what we need, so work. And that's the message in Ian's book. Do everything that these guys tell you, break your back, lift your levels of commitment, give it everything you've got, and you'll win 75% of all the bids, just like these two. I have great pleasure in watching the book.